The Cannabis Conversation. A European perspective on the emerging legal cannabis industry.
Welcome to the Cannabis Conversation with Dmitry SI, where we explore the new legal cannabis industry by speaking to the professionals that are helping to shape it. Hope you're all well. I am suffering from a bit of man flu this week. You can probably tell from my sexy voice. For those that know this devastating illness, you know that it can be a very rough time with very little sympathy shown from other halves. With that in mind, I'll keep this very brief for this week's intro. Cannabis Europa last week was great fun, but I've got a fair bit to say on it, so I'll leave it to next week, on the assumption I survive until then, of course. But back to today, we have a great show sponsored by our good friends at Lumino again. It's about CBD and sexual wellness, a topic that I've not covered before, and one that made me blush a bit. Maybe I need to grow up. Lumino have had great experience working with a variety of CBD product businesses over the last few years. They recruit for commercial roles and have placed many marketing and social media type jobs, but also senior hires like commercial directors and marketing directors. And they always give great advice for companies and candidates alike, whichever subsector you're in. So, as always, if you need help with HR or recruitment, get in touch with them at luminorecruit.com. And please do mention my name when you do. But now, on with the show. Enjoy. On today's show, we have Dmitry Loktionov and Kate Tikhomirova. Did I get that right, guys?
Yeah, you did well.
Thank you. Apologies. Yes, and these guys are the founders of Quanna. Quanna is a premium self-care and sexual wellness brand powered by CBD. Guys, welcome. How are you?
Good.
Hi, Anush. Thank you for having us.
Yeah, very excited.
Real pleasure. No, it's great. I get to explore lots of different areas, and this is definitely one that I haven't done yet. So it'd be great to hear more about what you guys are up to and just generally what sexual wellness is and what people are doing to kind of help themselves in that area at the moment. But where we usually start is with you individually. If you can just introduce yourselves and tell us a bit about your background and how and why you got into working with CBD and cannabis. Kate, would you like to start?
Sure. So my background is more in the creative fields. Well, I graduated from London School of Economics, but then decided to go and worked in fashion for a while, then moved to the States, to Los Angeles specifically. And that's where I discovered social media and the influencer world. And I've combined my passions in fashion and lifestyle and became an influencer. And there I also became familiar with the world of CBD because obviously in LA, it's so prevalent everywhere. But I was always a bit skeptical about it. I thought it was a little bit gimmicky at the beginning. So it was only later, after coming back to London and having my mom become really sick with advanced cancer and seeing her go through various treatments, that we've introduced CBD into her life. And seeing how much it's helped her, I became a really big believer and proponent of the plant.
Fantastic. I always ask this question as well. Did you have any issues around stigma attached to cannabis or any kind of hesitancy when you were looking at this?
Yeah, I think as everyone, I was just more confused as to what obviously you associated with the cannabis plant and like the getting high aspect. So it was more of an educational journey for myself. And after it coming into my mom's life, to help her with her cancer treatment and really reading up on it much more and understanding how varied the effects are. And obviously CBD having no THC and no high element in it whatsoever, but so many medicinal, incredible properties without the side effects that traditional stronger drugs do, and then pain medication and sleep drugs, etc. It really fascinated me so much. And just seeing how much it's helped her, it was an eye-opening experience for me. And then in turn for myself, I use it a lot for anxiety relief, for sleep management, etc. So it's just become a big part of my life.
Yeah, great. I do speak to a lot of people who have a very personal connection with it. And so thank you for sharing your story about your mum. And obviously that all makes kind of lots of sense. Dmitry, do you want to pick up for you and let us know a bit about you?
Sure. So I trained as a gynecologist and obstetrician back in Ireland. Lived there for 9 years. Still live with lots of Irish babies. My passion has always been to help women in one way or another. We've learned about recreational drugs back in medical school. We learned about, how it works, what are their positive effects, what are the negative effects. But we never learned it from perspective of a medication. It's mostly just like it's a drug. So then I stumbled across a book called Marijuana Reconsidered by Dr. Lester Greenspoon. He wrote this book in the 1970s, and he essentially opened my eyes that it's not a drug. It's not a gateway drug. It doesn't make people kill other people. It's a medicine, and it's a really safe medicine if used correctly. So that ignited my interest. I started researching that and looking into what people are doing. And naturally, being a gynecologist in women's health, I thought about combining the two. And essentially, that's how we realized that's what Quanna was concentrated on, sexual wellness.
Yeah, and that's really interesting coming from a medical background, because I know medical education on cannabis and the endocannabinoid system is not the most robust, let's say. Are you seeing that change a bit with your doctor's hat on? Are you seeing more people, more doctors being more interested?
Absolutely. I mean, I'm not sure how is it in Ireland anymore, but in UK, there's certainly new platforms, new medical cannabis academies popping up. Professor Michael Burns is leading the way, and I've attended his lectures and I've signed up for his courses. It's fascinating. I mean, that's all the knowledge we need. So he's doing a great job in that sense to educate physicians, dissolve the stigma, and essentially teach them how to provide the best care.
Yeah, it is good. Education. So yeah, let's talk a bit more about Quanna then. What does Quanna do? What products do you have, etc.?
Sure. So, as I said, we concentrate on women's health and sexual wellness. Our first product is called Oomph, and it's a premium water-based all-natural lubricant with CBD. The reason why we chose this product as the first one is because it doesn't exist. We're the first ones who have done it in a proper way. Other products that currently exist in the markets are mostly oil-based. And I don't want to go in detail as well, different types of lubricants. But the main point is that there's oil-based and water-based. And water-based are much healthier for female health. And it also can be used with condoms and sex toys in a safe way. So after, a few months of research and development, we launched with the first product. But the whole goal of the company is to cover the sexual journey of a person from pre-sex, during sex, and after sex. And we want to integrate the power of the plant and CBD into this, because we believe that sex is not only physical, it's also a mental state, and CBD is a perfect ally in that.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, it's it's almost like you're combining two taboo subjects, right? Cannabis and sex. How is that combination working?
It's had its challenges for sure. We definitely became aware that Meta, which controls Facebook and Instagram and all the ads and things that other companies use, is not friendly to either category and likes to do a lot of censorship. And we've actually been doing campaigns to raise awareness against that with other like-minded brands that are female empowering, whether they're like period care brands, other pleasure brands, etc., sexual wellness brands. So that's been very, very unfortunate and unfair, but hopefully will change. So that's definitely been one thing.
There's definitely two ways to look at it. There's a societal perception of sex and cannabis, which we need to break, and then there's other businesses and retail side, which we also need to break. But we speak a lot about kind of sex and cannabis at work, and we realize the more we speak about it at the beginning, people kind of look at you weirdly, but then they join in. So it does provoke interest, and the more you talk about it, the more people will join, because everyone has sex.
They get curious. Actually, one of our main hashtags is get curious. And that's sort of a cornerstone of our company and of our brand. And a lot of our part of our brand is that community building educational element where we do speak about these taboo topics that have been neglected in the past. And we're trying to remove the stigmas and make it more normal and accessible to all.
Yeah. And it must be an extra challenge being in the UK because us Brits are pretty repressed.
Absolutely.
Must be even more difficult.
Yeah, we always laugh about it. Like even before starting, when I was talking to my friends from LA versus my friends from London, and like the friends from LA would be like, "Oh my God, this is so awesome. Like, can't wait." And the London friends were like, "Ooh, that's so interesting." Like, what's that? And lubricant, so it was that different shift in mentality. Yes, the US is definitely much more open-minded when it comes to more pleasure, sexual wellness products. But as Dmitry mentioned, I think there's definitely that curiosity. People, it's just they haven't taken that leap, that next step yet, but they want to and they will, I think.
Yeah, it's great.
To add to this, we found very interesting statistics from Financial Times, and the share of women who say they have not had sex in the past 12 months in Europe, and UK is leading the way.
It's unfortunate for us, but yes, it's definitely there's a bit of a repressed.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'm trying not to blush, but luckily this is a podcast. So, yeah, look, I think it's a perfect opportunity to just expand the conversation out and actually talk a bit about what does that sexual wellness actually mean. Let's not bring in CBD yet. What does that whole area actually embody for you guys? What do you think?
Well, for us, it's sort of the fundamental belief that it's not just the sexual act itself. It's the mix of state of body and mind that enables you to explore and enjoy sex on your own terms and in your own time as such. And we also believe that to be a more empowering definition of sexual wellness, because it underlines the fact that it's not so much about gratifying someone else, but instead underlies the fact that it's more of an emotional, physical, and spiritual connection to yourself.
Yeah, fantastic. And I mean, this is probably a very, very big and wide open topic, but like, what are some of the current main options that people use, non-CBD options that people are using, and what are the use sort of cases for those?
So obviously, Durex is the biggest one. We noticed this trend of natural products and they're trying to go in. But historically, lubricant has been purchased by men. So most of the designs of the packaging are targeted towards men. Female purchase power is increasing and stigma is dissolving. So now it's more or less 50-50 between men and female. So we're noticing a lot of brands starting to target female population, including ourselves. And one of the leading UK brands is Hank's. It's a non-CBD, vegan, clean lubricant that has been very popular in the UK for the last 2 years.
Yeah, it also has like clean, minimal packaging. And for us as well, that when we were developing, one of our big consideration, and for myself coming from a more creative branding background, I really wanted it to look more aesthetically pleasing, especially for the female eye, for it to be more inspired by skincare rather than being like a sexual pleasure product. So that's how Oomph came about. The bottle is very organic. It looks like a little pebble shaped. It's beautiful, muted pastel colors. Something that you would be proud to have on your bedside table, basically.
Yeah. And are there any other product types? So you mentioned lubricant, but are there other kind of types of products in this area?
In sexual wellness?
Yeah, in sexual wellness, yeah.
Actually, as a category, it's massive. It's not only lubricants, it's also sex toys. It's also sexual apps, relationships apps, hygiene, anything to do with hygiene, personal hygiene, personal care. This is all sexual wellness. A lubricant is only a part of it. As a category, it is growing at an annual rate of at least 12%. It's a more than $10 billion industry worldwide. And the biggest increase is in Asian countries because, again, the stigma is dissolving. The awareness about female health and hygiene is increasing. So we see this big increase in understanding what is sexual wellness over there.
Yeah, absolutely. And so then sort of moving into how CBD interacts with this. How does the actual CBD help in the lubricant, or, in sort of wider products as well?
So as you know, CBD acts on your endocannabinoid system, which is a large system in the body that is responsible for sleep, stress, appetite, and lots of inflammatory states. So when applied to a intimate area, CBD, first of all, it increases blood flow. So increasing blood flow means increased pleasure. It also does decrease pain sensation and relax pelvic muscles, so it becomes easier, and it reduces inflammation. So if there's any kind of inflammatory conditions, whether it's could be endometriosis, for example, it's a local application of it, and it goes into bloodstream and it helps it.
Fantastic. So generally just improving your experience through a few different methods. And yeah, interesting you talk a bit about it, but do you see CBD helping with both pleasure and pain? Pain, I mean, not necessarily like kind of acute pain, but discomfort or those sort of areas?
Absolutely, yes. Again, how we see it, talk about performance anxiety. So that's when we're kind of worried about whether I'm going to have a good sex or bad sex. And, CBD, taking it even topically, it can help you to relax a little bit, calm down. When you relax, you tend to enjoy things more. I'd say, whether it's sex or just a day-to-day, it's realistic. And then in terms of, putting in lubricant, that also helps, because a lot of women suffer with vaginal dryness, whether it's, a few days during the cycle or if it's later in their life. But unfortunately, physiologically, that's what happens. And it's important to keep this natural lubrication going to enjoy the sex more.
Yeah. And, this is a common question, I think, for a number of products across the CBD market in general, but how important for you is the formulation, and how long did you sort of take to sort of figure that out? What sort of other ingredients are you using in combination with CBD?
It's very important. I spent almost a year researching different brands until I realized that they all white labeled, which make it, these different brands, but they all have the same formula. And I thought it's unfair to sell it to different people with different messaging. So we could have gone this way. However, we don't look for easy ways in. We always look for proper ways in. And that's why we decided to have full control of manufacturing. So we found a lab, we researched all the ingredients individually, and then we commissioned, our own formula that only we own. And from
there are a lot of trials, yeah.
Had a lot of trials, of course, which was which was great fun for myself anyway.
Yeah.
But yeah, and once we finished, we gave a last try to our friends, and we had amazing reviews, from reduction of postcoital infection to just enjoying sex more.
Yeah, and one extra ingredient that we added was a prebiotic, which as well is another little unique selling point of to basically keep the healthy microflora of the vagina and help keep any infections at bay, which is also great.
Yeah. Wow. I can imagine there's lots there. And I would imagine that there's probably different ways you can take this, as well as the understanding and the, experimentation, I suppose, continues.
Yeah. And, we want it to be as clean as possible. And essentially, there's lots of ingredients that they say is clean, but it potentially can lead to infection. So, for example, anytime for sugars, putting sugar can change the microbiome of the vagina and lead to infection. It's a very sensitive area. And we kind of had an idea that if you don't put a bad cream on your face, why would you put something, in your private areas when it can harm you?
Anything fragrance as well, same, can be super irritant, because like fragrances come from a lot of chemical processes as well, or like all will contain sugars, which will lead to what Dmitry just explained.
Yeah.
So it was a challenge, because essentially lots of formulas, to make them the way they are now, they require either those sugars or a little bit of fragrance. So people kind of enjoy, but, we made it, there's no smell, no taste. It's simple, but it's effective. That was our idea, is to make it less ingredients, make it effective.
Yeah, absolutely. And I guess coupled with that is the sort of delivery method. I'm really mainly a lot of the stuff that I talk about is around things that you ingest.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's slightly different, but the way that the active compounds get into your system is very important, and assume that you've been looking at that aspect too.
Very much. So there's two aspects. One is, where you put it, and then what is the actual formula. So in terms of where you put it, vagina absorbs a lot of things that you put inside due to the nature of the lining of it. And so the absorption rate is quite high. Second of all, compared to oil preparations, water-based formulas absorb completely, and the bioavailability of the product is much higher. So that's partly why we want water-based, even though we have a lower concentration, but we know for the fact that all of it goes inside the bloodstream.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's been a great rundown, and thank you for sort of giving us that overview. As we come towards the end, we need to talk about our friend THC. So obviously it's not allowed here in the UK, but Kate, you mentioned you spent some time in California. It's very much a vibrant scene there. Are you seeing sexual wellness products in different jurisdictions where that's allowed? Are you seeing them incorporate THC as well?
We do. We have a bit, actually. I think the result, Dmitry, correct me if I'm wrong, but the actual potency of the formula of THC versus CBD hasn't been that huge for sexual wellness itself. So we actually saw some of the brands in the US that had the THC formulation take it off the market and just stick with CBD. So in that respect, I think in sexual wellness, it's not really that much of an advantage having THC formulation.
At least not taking it as a lubricant. Maybe, if you ingest it or smoke it, I suppose, maybe you have different experiences in the bedroom. And this is something we might test in the future when UK gets there. Certainly at this stage, we haven't found a benefit of having THC in a lubricant.
Yeah, I was going to bring that up. It's definitely can be a mood enhancer, and
correct.
But again, I guess it's the dosage, the formulation, and maybe a little bit more THC, but maybe not too much, etc. But
right.
It's a hypothetical question for the UK market at the moment because of where we are. Let's see how CBD goes first.
Yeah, we still have to break lots of taboos with CBD for sure.
Absolutely. Guys, thank you so much for joining me. It's been really, really interesting to have you on. I love breaking new ground and talking about different areas, even if they make me blush. So thank you for coming on, and we'd love to have you on again at some point soon.
It's been so great. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
No worries. Cheers. Thanks for listening. Hope you enjoyed the show. If you did, please subscribe, rate, review and share the podcast. It will help me spread the good word on how this amazing industry is developing. I work with various cannabis startups to help them get funded and grow. I also work with corporates and international cannabis companies to help them understand and navigate the European cannabis sector. We're working with some great clients across the cannabis value chain, and we'd love to help you too. Please visit www.canverse.global to get in touch.